Welcome to the Natural Way of Being video blog. This video is titled, Acting According to Your Ethics. So for this video, I'm going to refer to ethics as the thing that your heart tells you is right for you in a given situation. Okay, so as suggested by the title, the thing I'm going to recommend to you is that you consider acting in accordance or in alignment with what your heart tells you is right for you. Now, this is fairly obvious concept, and of course we're going to do this, right? But it's not always easy to do when it gets down to the action level. It's not always easy to, because we get swept along with experiences, right? I mean, we're there, there's other people there, and we have, whatever attachments and desires and all of these cravings. And so it's sometimes it's easy concept to understand, but sometimes it's hard to act in accordance with what we feel is right for ourselves. But one of the main things I want to impart to you today is not just to do that, but why I'm recommending you do that. Because when we don't do that, when our heart suggests a place is not good for us and we go there anyway, or conversely, when our heart suggests that we should pursue something and we don't, we're left with conflict, because part of us knows, and we can't really fool ourselves, right? I mean, part of us knows that was not a good thing for me, and yet I did it. Or as part of us knows I really needed to do this, and yet I didn't do that. We can't really fool ourselves. So we're left with this conflict, like, why didn't I act in accordance with my ethics? And if we do this enough, it gets to the point where we lose respect for ourselves. If we, and that, trust me, is a difficult thing to come back from. I mean, we can do it, and there's a lot of self-forgiveness and making amends, and that's a lot of the work I do with people. But this is if we just do this from now on, there'll be a lot less need to forgive yourself. So that's kind of why. You're not doing it because it's spiritually correct, or it's religious, or it's in line with our morals, or you read it in a book. I mean, those are all good reasons if that's why you do it. But ultimately, it's a real practical reason to do this. When we're acting in alignment with what our heart is suggesting and what it's feeling ultimately, there's a flow and there's no conflict, and we feel like we're in our flow and we're in our integrity, and integrity, I'm just going to call that, with being in alignment with our heart, almost same as ethics, really. It feels good to feel like we're in our integrity. And I'm going to suggest that that's why you do it, because it feels good. I mean, it feels like, I'm right with myself. I mean, we use in our ceremony in the summer, we talk about going up on the mountains to get right with ourselves. And that's what this really is about. Well, what does that mean? It means that we're going to sit around the fire and we're going to do ceremonies. And a lot of that is just is remembering, what is right for ourselves? What is our heart trying to say to us? And then when we come down off the mountain and back into our lives, then our challenge is to live in alignment with that. So this, as I mentioned, this can be challenging, right? Because a lot of times there's forces and people and other human beings outside of us that are suggesting we act in different ways. And as you may have noticed, sometimes our culture isn't always the most ethical, at least our culture doesn't always live in accordance with my ethics. I don't know if you've experienced that same thing or not. So there's almost this, I guess you could call it peer pressure. You're with a group of friends or you're with people at work, and there's this kind of thing, we're all doing this together. And then you put your heart saying, I don't really feel like doing this together is really feeling right to me. So then you have a dilemma like this. So what do you do? And so I wanted to share an example. It goes back about 10 years ago, and I was working on actually Naval Hospital Camp Pendleton. I was a therapist working with Marines there. And so some of the therapists and psychologists and that, we went out, there's a cafeteria, and we went over to the cafeteria for lunch, and and so we're there. And the conversation quickly begins that some of the folks are starting to make fun of one of our coworkers. Our coworker had some challenges, and they began making fun of her, and it all right for a little while, but then it got kind of stuck on this, and my heart started feeling uncomfortable. It seemed like it was starting to become a bit mean-spirited. So after a while, I just said, this isn't cool, you guys. Let's give her a break, man. It's like, let's talk about something else, and they looked at me, and they're like, oh, come on, Mike. But they didn't stop, basically. It kept going. And so then I was left with this choice. It's like, do I want to be a part of this? And I ultimately chose not. So what I did was I simply, the thing I came up with in the heat of the moment is I got up and I said, you know what, you guys, I'm going to go back to my office and catch up on some of my notes. And I'll catch up to you later, and I suspect, you never really know, but I suspect they didn't even realize why I left. Now, if my heart would have suggested that I confront them, then maybe I would have done that, confronted them a little more strongly. But I wasn't really getting that, and I didn't really think of that at the time, to be perfectly honest. But what matters most is I sensed that I was in a place that was not good for me. It was not right for me to be part of that conversation. And so I creatively, in this case, I guess it could have been luck, I don't know. I creatively came up with a way to kind of extricate myself, remove myself from that situation. And in this situation, I didn't feel like I needed to make a big deal out of it. I just found a way to leave, and I did, and I took care of it. I got to feel like I was in my integrity. It was just a real simple act, not a big deal. Didn't create a bunch of conflict, and I just went on with my day. I saw my one friend that was part of the conversation later. We talked about football, and I was comfortable talking about football. There was no conflict there, so the day, life went on. But this simple thing, I spared myself so much unneeded conflict. And so the counsel of this is to kind of only do things that you feel good about, and that's hard to do. It's such a simple thing. It's hard to do, but it's actually so much easier to do that than to not do that and to be left with all the conflict and emotional pain, really, and of not feeling like we're in our integrity or not feeling like we're right with ourselves. So thank you for watching this video. Want to wish you a happy new year. May this coming year allow you to unfold all the things that you'd like to have for yourself. I'll see you next week.